I am thinking very dangerously about this team. And today is yet another example of why everybody in the country is going to and should start believing in this team. And if you didn't start believing in this team as of, 7-8 games ago, we're talking about some insane stuff here. Shout out at staff level only. Sometimes the chat doesn't come through with the actual names. It just shows the ats. So apologize about that. Big Trey and Bosco minutes. This team feels like old BYU football teams. The talent is decent, but they are better than the sum of their parts. Absolutely. It's just awesome that all these dudes are bought in right now, and it's just insane. It's just insane. The fact that BYU goes into this game, look at the freaking box score. Look at this. Look, not even BYU stats. Look at Iowa State stats on the box score right now. They shot 56% from the field, 43.3% from three. Now, and if you look at the first half, these numbers are crazy inflated. 71.4% from the line, only gave up 7 free throws in this game, which very different from last time these two played. Just incredible stuff. And you cut the turnovers down by 17 if you're BYU. But just incredible stuff. And I know Iowa State was injured, but man, you go in this game 51.7% from the field, 18 of 36 from three, and the best stat of the night, 18 of 21 from the free throw line. That's winning basketball in March right there. Going back to the chat here, Neville Wilson 7, he said basically Iowa State on beat Iowa State on 2 straight away games. These are legit wins, dude. That's the best part about this, and most impressive part is this wasn't done in the Marriott Center where there's a clear advantage. This was done at Hilton when they're fully healthy, and in the Big 12 tournament when, look, we've seen it throughout some of these conference tournaments today that the team that played yesterday typically has the advantage of getting used to the gym. And one game, your legs are still there. The following night after that, then you're not going to have your legs as much, but super impressive stuff there. BYU withstands Iowa State once again. Wow, just wow from our guy Weimer9 BYU. Shout out. And then Jack Carpenter in the chat to go. Couldn't watch this one. Morning puck waits for no one, but we're officially 23 days away from a live reaction pod in the San Antonio Chili's. If you didn't see my Twitter, we here at Church Ball have promised a live pod. Maybe it has to be a preview, a live reaction, depending on what it is. We will be doing a reaction or preview podcast from the San Antonio Chili's if BYU makes it to the Final Four, and we might even have to do one. Are there even Chili's in New York City? I feel like there aren't, but if they make it to Newark, New Jersey, or they go to San Francisco in the second weekend, do they even have Chili's in San Francisco? I feel like I'd never seen a Chili's when I've been in those two cities, but that's besides the point. But still waiting for Chase to pop in here. We'll get things going momentarily, so just keep typing in the chat, and I'll keep talking with you guys. Appreciate everyone hopping in right now. E-Dub in the chat. These are the days you take work off. Let's go. They are, man. These are the days you save your PTO, especially if you're a single guy. Look, if you're married, you got kids, your PTO's cooked. You're probably cooked. But if you're a single guy, man, these are the days you take off work, you use your PTO, you call in sick, you come up with, shout out grandma's funeral. You're probably using that one over the next 2 weeks. These are the times to take off right now. I got these 3 games in front of me right now. I got Xavier Marquette TV on the left. Straight ahead, I got UNC Wake Forest. I got this awesome Arkansas Ole Miss game on the right. And I'm talking to you fellas right now. This is unbelievable. And then Ethan Holiday, too, in the chat said, where were you when Richie Saunders saved the world? What was so impressive with me with Richie today was he didn't turn it on right away when the game started. I think Fran Fraschilla even talked about that at the end where, he was kind of, feeling things out a little bit. Wasn't, full throttle in that first half. And second half, man, he just turns it on. And once again, for a little bit when Richie started to go on this stretch, kind of at the start of Big 12 play, especially the Arizona State game, I'll be honest here, I'm guilty of this. I thought it was kind of a fluke. That Richie Saunders was balled out in the Arizona State game, and I go, he's not going to be dropping that kind of stat line, consistently throughout the year. We can't, BYU can't rely on that going forward. I was so wrong. I was beyond wrong. I could not have been more wrong. And Richie Saunders, man, 6 of 12 today, 3 of 8 from 3, 8 of 8 from the line. This man does not miss free throws against the Iowa State Cyclones. And then 5 assists as well today. He had some great passes, getting guys open, penetrating to the basket, kickouts. Just great stuff there from Richie Saunders today in this BYU game. And then BYU fans, you got to look ahead to this this Houston-Colorado game. Now, I would be absolutely shocked. I'm shocked that Colorado's even playing today. You know, the fact that they won, I was shocked they were playing West Virginia yesterday. And so the fact that they're playing Houston today, great run for them. But I think Houston should be able to sleepwalk through this Colorado game. And I am very, very excited for BYU versus Houston tomorrow. I think everybody on that coaching staff, I think all those players, I think they want to show this Houston team, hey, we're not that same team we played back in January. Staff level only said in the chat, with Duke's injuries, is BYU better than them? JK, it's not okay. I understand what you're saying. I know you said JK. I know you're trying to be funny. But if Cooper Flagg and Malik Brown are down for Duke for the rest of the season, knock on wood, let's pray they're not. If they are down, Duke is a very beatable team. I'm not going to sit here and say BYU's better than them, but Duke therefore becomes a beatable team if those guys are down. They're so talented team. But David Roberts, 20 in the chat, said, Houston is going to be facing a very different BYU team. Ain't your grandpa's Cougs. Haven't done this since 1950. They aren't your grandpa's BYU Cougars. They are. This is a different team. This is a different era of BYU basketball. This team has entered. The athleticism, the physicality. You go into these games, you go, BYU is the one handing it to this team. BYU's not getting punked anymore, like Kevin Young said after their game. So, going to be awesome tomorrow night. Very curious to see how BYU responds, especially, playing the back-to-back days and everything like that. Nelvin Wilson 7 said, Houston wishing Arizona didn't have the tiebreaker with BYU. A 100%. 100%. I don't think Houston wants to play. Look, it's not blue goggles to say this. Every BYU fan, everybody in the country is going to be saying this. BYU is one of the last teams in the country you want to see right now. That's the matter of the fact. There's Duke healthy, Florida, Auburn, and then the way BYU's playing right now, those are the teams you're talking about of who you don't want to play, and then put Houston in that mix. But obviously, in that example, we're talking about them playing Houston. So there's that. But yeah, Houston would much rather play Caleb Love and Arizona right now, even though I think they're still a solid team. But you don't want to be playing against this BYU team. Going to be awesome there. Anyhow, keep typing in the chat. I'll keep responding to stuff in the chat. Let's go through this box sheet real quick. Box score. Boscovich with some big minutes today. Knocked down 3 of 7 from 3. Just some huge shots. And that's the thing I kind of wanted to touch on. Let's go back to the first half where Curtis Jones just goes nuclear. I went back and I watched all of Curtis Jones' first half three-point makes. To be honest, I would say one of them, he came off that screen. Keita probably should have came up harder on that, but, whatever. And then Mag helped off of him, which he shouldn't have, and left him in the corner. But other than that, the defense was really solid. The dude was just lights out in this game. It was just a matter of the fact that he could not miss in this spot. And then going into the second half, you got to give a lot of credit to Moet Mag and Trey Stewart for limiting Curtis Jones' his ability to go nuclear. He still hit some big shots in the second half, nowhere near the same as his first half performance, but great defensive performance by BYU in that second half. It did enough. I'm not saying it was stellar or anything. It still ended up being close to similar scores last time being played. This was an NBA game essentially. But anyhow, keep typing in the chat. Chase will be here momentarily. Just getting things situated right now. And you're looking here on the box score as well. Yegor didn't have the best game. 3 points, 1 of 4 from the field, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 turnovers. Wasn't his night, but Dallin Hall, man, does it once again. He delivers. He is the steady ship of this team. 7 points, 2 of 4 from the field. All of his shots were threes, which typically I'm not a fan of in Dallin Hall's game. I think he's unbelievable when he's able to attack the basket. But Iowa State was so worried about him when he would attack the basket, they would overhelp a little bit, and then he'd kick it out and find someone at the three-point line. And that was there quite a bit this game, especially in the second half. That's the reason he had 7 assists in this game. Dawson Baker with a sneaky 4 assists in this game as well. And BYU, on 30 of their made buckets in this game, 24 of them were assisted. This isn't something that happened back in January. This isn't something that happened earlier in the season. It was a lot more iso ball. It was stagnant. They couldn't figure out what they really were. And now we're actually seeing, man, when this team plays free-flowing offense, we see the full potential of this talent. That's why there was so much hype coming into this offseason, and that's why Chase and I were so high on this team, especially when we would watch them in their practices and the preseason scrimmages and everything. Alex Beach in the chat, shout out. I really wish we would have been able to see this matchup in Provo this year. I want to hear your guys' responses in the chat right now. I want to know, is this becoming a legit rivalry of the Big 12? Is BYU versus Iowa State? Because shout out Jeff Call, his past life at the Deseret News. He tweeted this out. Games like this, consistent games like this, including the game last year, the game at Ames a couple weeks ago, and the game today, these are the kind of games that create rivalries. These are the kind of games that become must-watch TV. I mean, you look at I would say this first half of BYU Iowa State, I tweeted this out, that was the best first half of pure college basketball I'd seen this entire year. I watch a disgusting amount of college basketball. I got 3 games on at the moment, and that was still, without question, the best half I've seen from 2 different teams this year. Let's go. We got Chase in here. He finally popped in. Can we hear you, Chase? How's the mic?
Can we check? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
come through?
We're sounding great. There we go. I love it. I had to go solo for 15 minutes. You can hear it in my voice. I sound like Tom Izzo on Pardon My Take. I got the raspy voice. I'm dealing with the COVID flu, whatever you want to call it. I'm getting wrecked over here. So Chase, I need you to carry for a minute.
It's all right. We're here, fellas. Man, what a win! What a win for the Cougs. I got to say something. This is what I wanted to start out with. Even though shout out Karter for doing an amazing job going solo for a sec while I set up and everything in a different location. This team keeps proving me completely wrong, and I need to man up to it. I keep saying they'll lose this game, they'll lose that game. They're going to slip up at some point. I even said they should probably lose this game. It'd be better for them. All this stuff. They've proven me wrong and made me look like an idiot over and over and over again. And they are a special team. And the way that they are winning these games, the clutch minutes they're having in those last 2, 3, 4 minutes over and over and over again in these close ones, and then the way they are handling everyone else in their path over this 9-game win streak is nothing short of elite. And I don't want to be drinking too much blue Kool-Aid now because I would call myself a BYU pessimist, especially up to this point if you've been listening to the pod. But this is a special, really good, really talented, really well-coached basketball team who has the potential to do some pretty crazy stuff this season. Now, if it comes March and they blow a first-round game, they blow a second-round game, whatever, it's March, it happens. And I think that maybe people will try to discredit. But this 9-game win streak alone, even if they go and lose to Houston tomorrow, right, or if it is Houston, right, it doesn't matter because at this point I've seen enough. This is an all-time BYU team. The way that they were able to come together and band together is insane. And it all came in culmination today. I think of all the games, this is the one. I mean, it feels like I'm crazy saying this because I could say this for all of them. This is one of the most impressive ones, if not the most impressive win I've seen, because of just the nature of everything in it and the way that they responded was incredible. So I just want to start off with that saying I was wrong. I put my hand up. It happens. And I don't think I'm ever going to doubt them again. I think I'll just pick them to win from now on because they keep doing it.
I wanted to wait for you to bring this up, but I'm not afraid to say it anymore. This team can make the Final Four.
I'm not afraid to say it, and you know who else wasn't afraid to say it? Us 6 months ago. We not 6, but 4 or 5 months ago. We were on this, Karter, from the very beginning of that first scrimmage. And not to say that we were we saw this exactly coming, But we saw the potential in this team, and that's why we were so frustrated in the early weeks of January, I should say, and how they were playing. But to see it all come is very satisfying just because there's so much talent and also just kind of what we've been waiting for. They are that good. They are Final Four good. Now, like, it takes a special run no matter who you are to do something like that, but they're good enough to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, no question about it. Let me stop sharing my screen real quick, and we'll go back to the stat sheet here in a little bit. But this team has Final Four potential. Even someone in the chat earlier was talking about how if Cooper Flagg is done for the season, and what's happening to Duke right now with their injuries or whatever. Look, Duke becomes a beatable team at that point. And then all of a sudden the path opens up for you a little bit more. Well, let's say BYU ends up, let's say they end up as a 6 seed and they go against a 2 seed and whoever, and they're in Florida's bracket and San Francisco in that region. Let's say Florida falls in the Sweet 16 before BYU would eventually meet them in the Elite Eight in this hypothetical scenario. If the bracket opens up a little bit, I mean, BYU can compete with anybody right now, and tomorrow is going to be the ultimate test. I don't care. I don't want to hear any crap about Kelvin Sampson. I know we've talked about that on the pod before. Kelvin Sampson isn't huge on Big 12 tournaments or conference tournaments or whatever. I don't care. When that ball tips off, it's not like his guys aren't going to play hard. It's not like that team's not going to give a crap tomorrow. And if BYU goes in and shows that they can beat Houston tomorrow, look, I'm going to be honest, outside of a healthy Duke and maybe Florida for me, I think BYU can beat anybody in the country on a given day.
I absolutely agree. I really think they could beat, even on their best day, they could beat, I think, either Florida or their healthy Duke, but they would need them to help them out a little bit, which is maybe an obvious thing to say. Mm-hmm. But they've had it all, Carter, and we've come to the culmination here. These last 9 games have been awesome in the fact that, for multiple reasons. 1, they've been winning. 2, they've done it in so many different ways and in so many different scenarios against so many different styles of teams, right? They've beaten the slow-paced, muck it down, West Virginias, Kansases of the world, and even the Iowa States, and they've kept up with the Arizonas of the world. And then today, Iowa State's most explosive offensive performance in conference play, they kept up and they won it that way. And their ability to overcome things. It was the turnovers last time in Ames, right? It was free throws earlier in some of these games. They've adjusted. They've worked on them. They've become better. The defense has improved. Today's not the best time to talk about defense, but the way that they've just adapted to who they've played is a huge shout out to the whole entire team, but especially whoever's scouting them, because they've just come in with amazing game plans every single time. Because there's just so many different styles that they've been able to combat and play.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm watching. I got the Arkansas Ole Miss game on in the background, and Sean Padula just hit a go-ahead bucket, and then Arkansas just barely missed a half-court shot to tie it up at the buzzer. So, insane stuff at the SEC tournament. But 100%, man. On any given day, this team can beat whoever. Let's get back to the chat real quick. We got check. We'll go up a little bit further. Hold up. Alex Beach said Carter flu game ? Yeah. Yeah, not great.
Carter flu pod.
Oh my gosh. From Jack, can we send the president of Serbia a triple dipper in order to thank him for Boskovic?
What a Boskovic game, man. What a Boskovic
unbelievable game. Shout out Igor Demon fan in the chat. Colorado up 2-0 on Houston. Don't sleep on the Buffs, boys. I'm kidding. I just want a cakewalk to the title game.
Stop the count.
Absolutely. If Colorado wins this game, we have to start talking about them like we did with NC State and Kevin Keatts last year. That all of a sudden becomes a real play there. Jack said, if y'all held on to those takes, I think y'all had been sent to liberate the frame. All right, let's move on.
Wait, who said we let go of them, Jack? Who said we let go of those takes?
I mean, we weren't sitting there after the Utah game and said this team's going to the Final Four.
No one was. We would have been politically insane. But
that's true.
We were on it early.
Nathan Hot Take said, this is probably the first game where I was feeling good about how we were playing the entire time. No notes. To be honest, at halftime, we were texting a little about this. BYU was down 4. Iowa State kind of played the half of their lives without 2 of their best players. And BYU was only down 4 with the way they were shooting. I honestly felt pretty confident about BYU going into the second half.
I know, being only down 4 in that situation. This is a really good point Nathan brings up. Something I want to talk about. BYU weathered the Curtis Jones game, and that is huge to do, especially in preparation for March, where, look, dude, you have characters that pop up left and right looking to upset you or whatever. Look at, all the guys at the past, Jack Golke most recently, and they took that type of performance from Curtis Jones, who's really good, right, in night in, night out, but obviously had an astounding game for him, and he balled out, and they weathered it, and it didn't even matter. Right? They took it. So learning these lessons, I felt really good about BYU too, win or lose, because I knew that they were playing well. Sometimes, there was a world where, maybe Iowa State pulls us off. They hit a couple more threes, and sometimes it's just the way the ball bounces. And I thought BYU still played their game really well. So win or lose, I was going to be happy with the result, just because Iowa State's dang good, dude. And at this point, you beat them twice in 10 days, once at their place, once that they like to call Hilton South, right, where there was a lot of Iowa State fans. And you've kind of proven you have the upper hand there, but still a really good team. And the way that they were able to play their game, they settled in so well. The rotations have been huge. Playing Trey Stewart, right, really switched around minutes there at the end of that first half, the Boscovich thing, all of it. Playing Dallin Hall there at the end, getting that huge assist to Richie for that 3 to pretty much seal it. All of the things that I saw tonight, and I agree with Nathan, just made me feel awesome about this team. I was like, they might lose this. I don't care. They're looking, everything. They're showing me all the good signs right now.
Yeah, and if they did lose this game, if a team shoots over 50% from 3 and you lost this game, okay, that's just, look, chalk it up to the game. Because like I was saying before when I was solo on here, a lot of the threes weren't wide open. I thought the closeouts were pretty solid on a good chunk of them. It was just they were knocking them down in that game. But I'll get back to the chat here. St. Louis Cardinals in the chat. Is the Jefferson archetype of a big-bodied 4 an Achilles heel for BYU, or is the Queta-Bosco combo a good enough solution, Chase?
That's a really good question, because you have, it happened with Utah, right, with the Asar stuff, and BYU's response was just to let Keba guard him, and he ended up shutting him down offensively. But when you were at Iowa State, you're playing a legit 5, and then you have the 4 like Jefferson. They had to turn to the 2 bigs in Bosco and Keba, and it really worked out. I think if they come up against an elite duo at a 4 and 5, someone where both those guys can score and also stretch the floor, that would be the real Achilles heel. But I feel really good about a player. When BYU going up against a player who has no shot outside of 10 feet, because I just trust Keba Keita to guard the rim against pretty much everyone at that point. The impact that he has, it's the Rudy Gobert effect. We said it a bunch of times, but the impact that he has, not even when he blocks it, but just being a presence in there, is so massive that unless they found a 4 and a 5 who could stretch the floor and bring him out of the paint, I really think BYU could handle anything. I think Iowa State, this was, there's only a couple teams that have a 4 that good on the inside, and BYU's been able to weather that. So my answer is I think it works unless there's a 4 and 5 that can really stretch and get Keba out of the paint.
I think you nailed it. I think you 100% nailed it. Jack in the chat said, I'm going to just say this. Carter isn't getting enough credit for his player development take, aged like caffeinated beverages. Aged like wouldn't that take go flat then?
Yeah, that sounds bad. That's
the opposite.
I know,
right?
He's just trying to be like PG for the theme of the pod, but
yeah, it's supposed to be fine wine, but
it is aging like fine wine right now, Carter.
Yeah, no one wants a warm, flat Sprite. Ugh.
No. Ew.
That's that take is like us saying Iowa State was going to win this game.
Yeah, and we were wrong. I'll tell you what, though, tonight, I think we can all agree we were kind of like, Richie's maybe a little slow tonight. Maybe it's just not his night, but he does this every night. Or by the end, you start to realize you're like, he just gets his stuff and he comes in the biggest moments. I think he scored. Someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong, like 12 out of BYU's last 13, and obviously had the biggest moments, perfect from the free throw line, and just ended up being an absolute clutch performer. And you look at it, you're like, how does Richie, even before those big last 3 minutes, you go, how does Richie have, he's got 14 points. Oh, that was quiet. he's just become that guy for BYU where he's going to be impactful scoring every single night now. And then everything else just seems like a bonus. And then he comes through in these big moments and hits free throws and still hustles and plays defense and grabs boards. But the Richie Saunders stuff, man. Did you know his dad invented tater tots?
Yeah, that's something I'm gonna get or grandpa or something, right?
Yeah, his grandpa. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, and that's gonna be one of those like annoying things you just hear nonstop throughout March Madness, and where depending on the commentator, they're just gonna say it every single game without fail. And they'll like toss it to the sideline reporter, like, "Did you know this?" And then it's like, "Yeah, anybody who's watched a BYU game has heard this by now, like 6 times." So
yeah, it's like the Jake Retzlaff is Jewish thing. It might turn into one of those.
No, that one was on crack. Shrimpy Jackson in the chat, shout out. Agreed, Chase. We balled out today. Jones was red hot, but Trey Stewart proved all those haters wrong, man. He was absolutely dominant on Jones. And look,
awesome.
For how hot Jones was, look, he made some big-time shots and everything. Trey Stewart really slowed him down for what he could have in that second half. Chase, I want to bring this up, though. Do you put a tiny asterisk on this game because of Lipsy and Gilbert not playing?
That's a good question. I think it's, first off, we don't have to discuss really interesting move from Iowa State because they were obviously, Lipsy at least, he could have played, but their priorities are on the big dance. Which I totally respect, and I think maybe is the right move. I just think it was interesting. I don't put an asterisk because, again, Curtis Jones had the game of his life, and Iowa State was shooting 59% from 3 at one point at halftime. So, yeah, you're missing a couple good players for Iowa State, but man, like you could argue BYU is missing a guy who started in Cannon Catchings and all of this stuff. I don't put an asterisk because I think Iowa State still played a really good game, and I bet they still think that they should have or could have won that. So, injuries are part of it. And Lipsy will be back. He obviously could have played, but I don't know if he did, they did, made a call and just said, don't play this one.
Yeah, and there's no point in risking a guy like that. Like, if Cannon Catchings were to play today, there's no point in risking Cannon Catchings in the Big 12 tournament, in my opinion. Just save him for March Madness if he's healthy enough.
Yeah.
If a guy's anything less than 80%, don't play him in your conference tournament. Yeah. And I 100% agree. If the game would have been BYU wins, 85-60, and, Iowa State looked lost and they looked like a shell of themselves, I would agree. But, okay, if Lipsy and Gilbert are playing, yeah, I understand those are more threats on the floor and everything. The game's a lot different probably at that point. But at the same time, Curtis Jones isn't scoring 31 points in this game if those two guys are playing because they're taking shots away from him at that point. So I don't know if it necessarily mattered.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's just how I feel. And Lipsy didn't have an amazing game against BYU the first time around. So, if you want to say he'd make a huge difference, there's just not a lot to argue it there. It just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Back to the chat. Jack said, Houston, Cam Newton, allergic to gluten, don't matter. Cougs by 10 against Houston. Yegor Demon fan said, Bosco needs to come up with another 3-point celebration before March Madness comes around. And then St. Louis Cardinals disagreed. Jack Carpenter said maybe Bosco could wrestle a bear during a timeout or something. And then St. Louis Cardinals said, I'm still somehow never confident when Bosco takes a 3.
I'll tell you what, St. Louis Cardinals, I kind of feel that. Man. He's got that form where you're just like, does that even have a chance? And it's the flat shot. He hits him sometimes.
Someone in the NBA has his exact form, and I can't think of it off the top of my head. Every time I watch him, I go, someone has that exact same shot.
It's not coming to me off the top of my head.
It's not,
but
it should click immediately.
I know what
I'm
going
to do my research.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. Anyhow,
it's a little Trey Stewart-ish. They kind of have similar strokes there. No?
Kind of a little bit where they kind of fling it back a little bit behind
real high release, kind of Kevin Durant-ish, but not quite as. He's one of the greatest scorers of all time.
Wait, you're saying Bosco and Kevin Durant are the same level of scoring capability?
No, Trey Stewart and Kevin Durant are. Bosco just needs to catch up.
Yeah, there you go.
The celebration thing's actually important for March, man. Having that energy from the bench. I don't know if people have seen circulating on Twitter. I'm sure you have. the Elijah Crawford when Richie hit that three to pretty much seal it. He lays on the floor and does like the night. BYU doesn't need, but they're like, that's like the last step. That's the last infinity stone, man. Getting a good bench that just wacky celebrations. Do you remember that Monmouth team a few years back where they just went famous? They don't have to go that crazy, but having like a good bench that brings that energy.
Oh, Elijah Crawford had the celebration of the night.
That's what I said. You weren't paying attention. It's okay. It's okay. I know the people were.
Sorry.
That's fine.
No, it's fine.
He's laying down, right?
Bad job by me.
And it was perfect. It was perfect timing. No, it's totally fine. I know you're taking notes, doing research, but that might be BYU's last step. That might be the last infinity stone. Just crazy, wacky bench celebrations. They're already great. They already bring energy.
Yeah, and especially because like this team, the chemistry's there, man. Everybody's happy on this team. Everybody loves each other. Everybody's happy to play with each other. Just great stuff. There's just awesome stuff with this team, man. I can't emphasize that enough. And Chase, watching this game, how bad did you want to be in Kansas City?
I thought about that the entire time. I was like, this seems like a great environment. Like, obviously, them winning. Yeah, it's a bummer.
Do we just get a flight?
We just go to Kansas City right now.
Do you just book a flight, get out there tonight, maybe catch the second half of Arizona, Kansas?
I tell you what, it would be fun. There's been some good games. That Kansas UCF game was nuts. And then obviously this one was like might be the game of the entire week across conference tournaments. Just as far as like level of play, the scoring, the talent on the floor. I know there's like more exciting endings out there because this one ended up with like a BYU kind of putting away with 40 seconds. But man, it was just elite level ball out there, man. It was fun to watch.
Kansas UCF was a ton of fun last night. And already with just these two games alone, this tournament has already surpassed last year's tournament by about 5,000.
Yeah, easy. Absolutely. Last year's was boring. I'll just say it. Last year's was boring. And this year's is better. Stunk. This year's has already been way better.
Last year's Big 12 tournament was so boring. In the chat, Jack is out of here. He has to give a presentation about his half-court shot, so good luck with that. Nelvin Wilson in the chat said, can someone please send me Conor McGregor, or can someone please send Conor McGregor some game tickets if we beat Houston? Yeah, we'll get our people on that ASAP. Nolan Mickelson, shout out. When Colonel Saunders hit the dagger, I knew Iowa State was cooked. Like a big old bucket of original recipe. I love it. Shout out Nolan Mickelson. And then your Demon fan said Barstool is already all over the Richie's great grandfather tater tot.
So it's great. It's great grandfather then. We were wrong.
Yeah. Whatever.
I mean, it just makes sense. It seems like one of those facts that someone just made up, but you believe it. You're like you see this this dorky white guy, he's hooping, he's cooking dudes, and you're like, did you know that his great grandfather invented the tater tot? And you're like, I guess so. It makes total sense, man. You could be making that up, but I believe it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did he get royalties for that? Like every tater tot we eat, this Saunders family get a little kickback?
No shot.
No?
I doubt it.
Nah, I doubt it too. If we could find, do they like sell them, or did he just like come up with it and then everyone stole it? I need to know more about this tater tot thing. Like, I get that he did it now. I need the story now. I need a documentary. I need a 30 for 30.
Yeah, let's get 60 minutes. They just interviewed Dan Hurley. I think they're gonna have to interview Richie Saunders next. People are just talking about tater tots in the chat right now. People are having it for lunch. Tater tots are an elite side. Tater tots are fantastic. Great with fry sauce. That's one thing that does stink about the East Coast is lack of fry sauce.
Yeah. Utah's blessed with the fry sauce. I think other Western states are catching on. I know Cali's got their thing going. Tater tots are great. They just have to be crispy. Soggy tot, soft tot, not for me. Fries can get away with it if it's a good one, but tots, you got to make them crispy, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, no fry sauce thing. Because I didn't have fry sauce until I moved out here, really. Yeah, because I didn't really have fry sauce until I moved out here. I was like, this is fantastic. I remember I went back home during Christmas I was like, wait, you guys don't have fry sauce here? And I'm just getting handed ketchup. I was like, whatever. But anyhow.
Do you know how to make fry sauce like at home? Do you ever mix?
Isn't it just ketchup and mayo basically?
Well, Alex Beeks just says homemade fry sauce is not good either. If it's just ketchup and mayo, I agree it's not good. But here's what you got to do, folks, real quick, and then we'll talk hoops. Ketchup, mayo, then you go a little bit of barbecue sauce, and then throw some pickle juice in there and mix that all together. Then that easy leads. That's good stuff. If you're ever,
what if I just bought it from the store?
If you're jonesing for fry sauce, that's what you do.
Oh, gotcha. Is that what you did on your mission?
No, because I didn't live in Utah before my mission, so I actually wasn't really introduced to fry sauce either.
Colorado doesn't have it?
It might now. It didn't before. Also, New Zealand ketchup, which is just called tomato sauce, is nasty compared to American stuff.
Is it just no sugar in it?
Yeah, it's legit. Just tastes like tomatoes, and it's bad. So,
anyhow, back to the basketball. BYU's playing in the Big 12 semifinals. What odds would you put BYU at winning this tournament now?
The whole dang thing. Look, man, it's 2 games. And I really I don't know if I like their chances, but I really can't wait to see them play Houston. If they win that, then it's really 50-50. So I'm going to say, do some math here. I'm going to give them an 18% chance to win this whole thing. I know it's not amazing, but that's still pretty good conference tournament odds.
I don't think it's wild to say 30% or so. I think this Houston game, I think we're going to come out. I bet Vegas, I don't know what the number is going to be on this game. My guess is Houston probably by about 5.5.
Sounds right.
But BYU, man, the problem is for Houston wants to play one way. BYU can play multiple ways, and BYU has better shot making on their team. Now, Houston, when they get to play their game, they can be, one of the most locked down teams in the country. But if BYU's shots are falling in this game, I don't know if Houston can keep up with BYU.
Absolutely, because Houston's just offense is really slow and mugged down like we talked about. And BYU has been able to respond to those teams. The problem is BYU just can't start out super slow like they've done 3 out of the last 4. This one was the exception, right? They finally figured it out, came out really red hot actually in this game. But before, when they've kind of played those teams that like to slow you down, they've had like 10 minutes through 13 minutes, or 10 points through 13 minutes. And that's not going to fly against Houston. That team's way too good. They will kill you. You also can't turn the ball over on them. They're great in transition. And obviously, they're going to put a lot of ball pressure. But I really think if BYU plays their game, they're composed. They just have to shoot not even a crazy clip, a decent clip, and play solid D. I really love them heading into this Houston game. It's going to be a great game to watch, but I honestly think that they can win it. And like I said at the beginning, when I got in here, I'm done doubting them. I might mess around and just pick BYU in that one.
Yeah, well, we're going to preview the game right now because we're not putting out a preview pod for tomorrow or anything. But real quick before we dive into the Houston game, Moose is in the chat.
Moose.
Coming in here late. If y'all haven't talked about it yet, Trey was the difference maker. He locked up Curtis. Strange that Mag couldn't do it. Next man up, and Trey came out lit and changed the defensive energy. Absolutely. We did touch on that, but Trey Stewart making a big difference out there as well. And he also said, worried about Houston's ball pressure. We'll talk about that here in a second. And then back to the tater tot thing. Shout out Yegor Demon fan. He said 1953 Nephi Grigg used his excess shavings from frozen French fries to make feed for his livestock. Recipe was purchased by Tots.
We're eating livestock food with tater tots? He was feeding pigs?
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Turns out.
Shout out him though, because they're great.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Thanks for the research.
Anyhow, yeah, shout out that guy. Let's talk about this Houston game a little bit more as well. Moose in the chat said, worried about Houston's ball pressure on Yegor. I could see him coughing up 7 turnovers in this game. I think that's going to be a real point of emphasis going into the game tomorrow, is telling Yegor, hey, really, really take care of the ball. It's interesting with Yegor. You have this weird dynamic where, it's like a quarterback where, you're a little concerned about a quarterback if he's not throwing a few interceptions. If a quarterback has 0 interceptions, like, Russillo always talks about, like, okay, he's just not making risky throws. He's not doing anything. He's taking short throws. He's making easy throws. And sometimes you don't want to limit Yegor as much. You want him to be, a little loose and be able to say, hey, play your game and just let it fly out there. But at the same time, against a team like Houston, who wants to muck it up and is elite defensively, it could be a recipe for disaster for a guy like Yegor.
Yeah, I agree. I like the quarterback analogy. I think I'd add to it. I like if he's being aggressive downfield, throws a pick. I don't like him getting strip sacked. And the problem with Yegor against Iowa State, the first time they played them, was he was just getting punked and getting his cookies taken, right? I'm okay with a Yegor turnover if it's him being aggressive, looking for a cutter or the right play, and he occasionally catches, a straight hand and it gets tipped or just misses a guy. It's the getting stripped at, dang near half court because of ball pressure. And then it's the lazy, I'm not even looking. The play says, throw the ball here. I'm throwing the ball here. And they get an easy bucket. Those are the ones that you can't live with against Houston, an elite team who will scout that, watch the film, and implement that tomorrow night. But BYU's been so much better, at least they were today, right? Only 10 turnovers compared to 29 the last time they saw this Iowa State team is pretty crazy and a huge improvement. So they have to have a game like today where they take care of the ball and be smart with it. And I think they handled the pressure well. I think they adjusted to it against, not just Iowa State, but I think, Utah tried to be aggressive with the ball handlers and they made them pay by getting to the basket, being aggressive, getting paint touches, finding shooters, and all that stuff. The problem is, you might be going up against the best defensive team in the country in Houston. So it's easier said than done. It's going to be a real test. I mean, I would say there's no better team to play right before the tournament than Houston, other than the fact that they're so physical. You almost worry about getting worn out or hurt. But this is the best of the best defensively. So they're going to see what they've got.
Yeah, and once Houston pulls out this Colorado game, they already kind of got a handle on this game right now. Going into this one of these win streaks is going to snap. Houston on it's going to be an 11-game win streak going into this one. BYU on a 9-game win streak. Man, people. Let me ask you if you feel this way. Do you feel like as a fan, from the fans' perspective, do you want a loss going into this? Do you not want to be too hot? Do you not want to have going in with double-digit win streaks going into March Madness, or does that matter at all?
My personal preference, if I'm being objective, I'm like, no, it doesn't matter at all. But honestly, I have to speak my truth here. Yeah, I think I'm superstitious about that stuff. And I also think there's a real thing to it. And I think you kind of want to lose one of these games just as a little wake-up call, just as a little reminder you're not invincible, just for some tape to watch, just for some hunger to be put back into you, right? Just that feeling of losing heading into the single biggest game of most of these guys' life, right? And so, it's not great analytics. It's not great, podcasting. But honestly, yeah, I believe that. And I think a loss is better than heading in just completely undefeated. But winning the Big 12, I'll never, if they pulled this off, I would not complain at all because I'd be like, that is so sick. They won this awesome conference and they ended out the regular season amazing. And I still wouldn't be like, now they're definitely going to lose. But there's something about getting that hunger, that fire back that I think losing gives you a little bit of an advantage. I don't know.
Alex Beach in the chat said, do you think Houston wants to lose tomorrow to have more tourney prep?
Look, man, Iowa State sat Tamin Lipsey, right? He could have played, but they played it smart, and they just said, look, we don't want you getting any more hurt. I'm not saying they tried to lose, but there's strategy in this thing. And games a week from now just mean more than these games here. And we're not trying to diminish the tournament. It's awesome. It's really cool. If you win it, that's incredible, amazing. But at the end of the day, man, there's bigger games ahead. And an extra day of prep, what does that mean? If that makes it feel better, that's awesome. There's also a weird trend. March Madness is full of trends. There's a weird trend with conference tournament winners. Their success in the big tournament afterwards is not typically great as you go along and look at some of the history. A lot of upsets there and stuff. So it's all superstition and maybe just coach speak. Because the coach will always tell you we're trying to win every game. We want it, but You sometimes sit your best players who are not 100%. You sometimes don't feel too bad in the locker room after a loss. I don't think Iowa State's I don't think they're torn up about losing today, if that answers your question. I think they're like, well, okay, no one got hurt anymore. Damon Lips is going to be back. Let's move on to next Thursday or Friday. Let's see our draw. Let's get at it.
If I'm TJ Otzelberger, I think this is best case scenario because your team showed, hey, against a red-hot BYU team, we were able to hang in there without two of our best players. And then, meanwhile, a guy like Curtis Jones has the capability of going for 31 points in a March Madness-style game. Like Iowa State, like you said, I think they're thrilled about going home. Like I don't think anybody's going to be crying leaving that locker room. I don't think anybody's going to be terribly upset or anything. Go back to Ames, rest up, and get ready and watch the selection show, fill out a bracket, and then get to your tournament site and start prepping. And back to the chat, Moose said Houston is getting a warm-up game tonight. I don't think they'll need to rest going into next week, LOL. No, they won't. This is going to be a piece of cake for Houston. You know they do on election night where it's like whenever they go to like the super red or blue states, like, all right, we have decided that we are going to call Massachusetts for Kamala Harris. We're going to call the state of Idaho for Donald Trump. I'm going to go ahead and call this game for Houston over Colorado.
I don't know, man. Not all the reports have been in, Carter. We can't say with 100%.
Are you saying there's some missing votes? There's some missing points going around?
Some sketchy votes counting. No, you're absolutely right. If you're Houston, you're getting a warm-up game, but then you have to play the hottest team in the conference in BYU. Like you have to go play a dog right now who's going to run you up and down the floor, be physical in their own right, shoot a buttload of threes, man, and you got to go win that game in Kansas City. So I think that warm-up game, though, to our guy Moose's point, is probably really good for Houston coming into this BYU game, right? They don't have to go stupid crazy today against a Buffs team who is on an awesome run. Happy for them, but they're the worst team in the conference by record, right? And you just get to kind of warm up, get ready for this big BYU game. Whereas BYU just fought for their lives for 40 minutes, and that's good in its own right too. But yeah, I'm calling that Houston one too. I think it's over.
This one's Jover. Anyhow, but going into the game tomorrow, I'm not gonna pick against BYU in this one. I'm not. I think this BYU team wants to win this tournament. I think they want to prove something. I think they want to make a statement in Kansas City, and I think they end up making that statement tomorrow. And I think after BYU beats Houston, it's gonna put the country on notice. And everybody's going to start buying into BYU. And guess what? Really think about this now. If let's say BYU wins, they win today. Now they are, I bet half the brackets are going to have them as a 5, half are going to have them as a 6. They beat Houston tomorrow. Every single bracket is going to have them as a stone cold 5. Maybe some flirting with the 4. And then, the committee doesn't necessarily count a lot of the conference championship games, which is a terrible formula, whatever. But let's say they do count it, and BYU goes in and beats Texas Tech on Saturday. All of a sudden, you're talking about probably a team that should be a 4 seed going into March Madness.
They would have the resume of them. Absolutely. It just would be tough. Like you said, the committee, those Saturday and Sunday morning games, they don't take too much stock into them, but they would have the legitimate record and the word is resume. Jeez Louise, dude. To be a 4. And they would also, the committee also always says that, like, we also take into account how you're playing right now, who's hot right now. And so, I mean, at that point, if they were to pull that off, we're talking hypothetical here, no one would be hotter than BYU. Absolutely no one.
No. And we'll go prediction time now.
Let's do it.
I think BYU wins tomorrow. I think they win 77-76. I think BYU hits a game winner at the buzzer. Richie Saunders knocks down a corner 3.
That makes me excited just thinking about it, man. I also am not going to pick against BYU here. I'm done doing it. I'm sick of it, and I've been proven wrong too many times. And this team's won my trust, and they've earned my respect, and they've earned this pick. I'm going BYU wins this one. It's a bit of a slugger. BYU's offense struggles at times, but they really fight through it. I say they win this 73-70 off some clutch free throws. Man, their free throws have been really good lately, Carter, and I think that's the difference.
Absolutely. If you're going to play Houston the way BYU's been able to get into the paint and penetrate more and how physical Houston plays, you're going to get foul calls in this game.
Yep.
100%. Hey, watch the tape. Kevin Young, you coach Chris Paul, man. Bring up the tape. Start head bobbing back and forth. Start flopping left and right. Start getting these calls tomorrow against Houston because they are going to play a super physical game, keep driving to the basket, kicking out, playing their game. And I think if BYU can force Houston into their game, BYU wins this game. Houston does not want to play fast, and I don't think they're capable of playing fast, and BYU is. And even if Houston slows it up and mucks it up, I don't think BYU is necessarily completely out of this game, which makes me love BYU tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're going to go MVP pick, it's tough, man. At this point, everyone is up for grabs.
In their own way,
they're so good. Carter, this is insane. I just was looking. I got to read this real quick. These are the minutes from every guy tonight. 17 minutes, 20 minutes, 24 minutes, 27 minutes, 19, 18, 21, 26, 16, and 13 minutes. Like all these guys played legitimate minutes. I mean, look at this list. This is insane. Like Richie Saunders, who usually plays like 34, 35, sat a little bit more, and he still led with 27 minutes, right? But everyone else, man, the Trey Stewart stuff, the Boskovic stuff, like that is how hard it is to pick these MVPs because today, I keep thinking it's night, you probably would say, I think Trey Stewart, maybe Boskovic, just for the spark, maybe not necessarily the stats. If you're a stats guy, you're like, okay, Richie Saunders did his thing again. He deserves MVP once again. Anyway, just a huge credit to what the coach has been able to do with this lineup and all those guys for staying ready. My pick for this game, I think it's some Dallin Hall time. And I think
that's where I was going.
Sweet.
We'll go joint MVP. We'll both go down.
Let's do it. I'll just say my spiel real quick. I think with Houston's aggressiveness, I do think Dallin's the best ball handler on the team. And I think he finds a way to get into the paint, draw fouls, finish at the rim, and opens everything up in a time when BYU is struggling. I think he handles that pressure really well and opens things up. So I'm going Dallin Hall.
Yep, absolutely, for the same reasons as well. I think he steadies the ship a little bit tomorrow, especially if things are a little rocky with Yegor at the start. And I think he has success penetrating, like you said. I think when he does penetrate, he is going to get fouled tomorrow. He's got to be able to knock down free throws and be consistent from the free throw line, which sometimes he has struggled with. And also, Chase, I think we see a couple FU down threes tomorrow because with how good Houston's defense is, that's when those FU threes come out and the defense breaks down and all of a sudden it's 5 seconds left on the shot clock and he goes, all right, dribble through my legs, step back, bang, right in your face. I think we see a couple of those from Dallin Hall as well tomorrow.
Yeah, he lives for those moments. And this is a gym that's going to be a crowd that's going to be amped up. And I love it, dude. I don't really think all those guys play well. I think we see impact from each dude. It's going to be a fun game. Fun to watch.
Do you think it'll be more Houston or BYU fans?
Dang, dude. I
bet it's a split.
I'm trying to think about last year when we were there. There was a good amount of Houston fans, man.
Iowa State ruled it, though.
Yes, for sure. But all those cats are gone now. So, I mean, they might keep their seats or whatever just to catch games. I think it's pretty split. I give the slight edge to BYU just because they're crazy in the way they travel.
The other thing is people got to remember if Kansas pulls off the upset against Arizona tonight, then the building's going to be 50% Jayhawks.
Yes, they will get there to watch. Man, this Big 12 semifinal lineup is an all-timer. No matter who wins in these next two games after here, it's going to be so fun to watch, dude.
I think all of these conference tournament semifinals are going to be unbelievable. You look at even the ACC, we're probably getting Duke-Carolina rematch, Clemson-Louisville. That's going to be an awesome game. Houston-BYU is probably the game. Duke-Carolina is different. But Duke-Carolina without Cooper Flagg isn't hitting the same. BYU-Houston's the game I'm most looking forward to during this conference tournament semifinal slate. Then on top of that, even mentioned the SEC, the Big East is going to be awesome. I mean, St. John's, Rick Pitino, those guys are already moving on. Xavier's playing for their tournament life right now against Marquette. But let's go back to the chat, and then I want to do a bracket thing, and then we'll get out of here.
Yep.
Moose in the chat said, is BYU a legitimate Elite Eight contender, Final Four contender? We touched on this a little earlier, but we'll reemphasize this. Yes, 1,000% yes, this team can make it to the Elite Eight, can make it to the Final Four. Do I think they can win a national championship? I don't. I think winning six games is very, very, very different than winning 4 games. We've seen a lot of teams win 4. You don't see many win 6. So, and once you win 6, you got to go into a game. When you get to the Final Four, all bets are off. But I think national championships a little. I could be talked into it eventually. The bracket opens up a little bit, but as of now, man, no, I don't. I don't think it's a crazy idea to keep an eye on San Antonio flights. I'll just say that.
I totally agree. So my answer is yes, Moose. And I just think you guys will be shocked. I don't know if you follow any of that stuff, but they do like celebrity brackets. If you go on ESPN Tournament Challenge, you can see the experts picks, right? You can see the consensus picks, like the public. You're going to be so shocked. Maybe you're not if you're us. A lot of people are going to have BYU going Elite Eight and further. They're going to be a insanely sexy, super, super hot pick. And so, I mean, maybe that scares you if you're superstitious about that stuff, but a lot of people think this, and so do we, man. They're legit. They're so good.
They're 100% legit. And going to that, let's go through the bracket right now. Let me share my screen real quick. And shout out the Field of 68, Fielding the 68. They're doing like 2 bracket shows a day right now.
That's awesome.
So FYI, I want this out there before people freak out before they see this. And I didn't put out a tweet with this one because they're going to put out a new one later today that'll be updated. BYU as the 6th seed here is not updated. This was put out during the Iowa State game. So BYU could be a 5 in their newest bracket. So it's a little, it's not updated. That's what it is. And so you look through this right now, you see them in the West region if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. First round, they'd go against Ryan Odom, former Utah State, former UMBC coach. Ryan Odom coached a VCU team. And then in the second round, if they won that, they would likely face Texas A&M. And likely in the Sweet 16, they'd face Rick Pitino and St. John's. And then if they were to make it to the Elite Eight, they would likely face Florida in the Elite Eight in the West region in San Francisco for a chance to go to San Antonio in the Final Four. Chase, how do you like this bracket for BYU?
I'm not going to lie, Carter. I absolutely love the look of this right now. Being able to play VCU in the first round, I think, is a huge win. And no disrespect to them at all. I just think they're beatable. And I think, they have had their time as underdogs, but this would be an at-large for VCU, right? Or I guess if they win their conference tournament, they were on the bubble anyway, so they're not even having that underdog mentality. I think BYU really could play with them, be physical with a mid-major team like them. I love Texas A&M in the second round. I've been talking about that matchup potentially for weeks now and how I'd love to see them being able to take that second round. And then I even love the St. John's one or whoever ends up coming out of that. Because again, overall the 2 seeds, except maybe Michigan State, I think this is the best draw. And not even to mention the 1 seed, you're kind of stuck with Florida. Auburn and Duke are going to be in those Sunday brackets, and then Houston, they were not going to want to match you up with again. So I think they're pretty much locked into that Florida bracket. So, I mean, if it came down to it, it'd be a great game.
Yeah, if they get bumped up to the 5, they could swing over to Duke's bracket because the East region is a Thursday, Friday. It just depends there. So regardless, the way this is shaping out, unless, Florida crashed out in some weird way or whatever, those are going to be your 1 seeds in the NCAA tournament. And so your 1 seeds that you're looking at if you're BYU are Duke or it's Florida. And so, look, eventually you just got to beat good teams if you want to win in the tournament. So
they've been doing it.
You can't sit there. Yeah, and they've been doing it. That's the other thing. And the one thing you did mention, too, is I understand St. John's. I think they're the best defensive team in the country with them, Duke, and probably Houston. I think those are by far and away the 3 best defensive teams in the country. St. John's isn't some world beater on offense. They're not this elite offensive team that we're talking about right now. If BYU makes St. John's play their game, St. John's is cooked. St. John's can't score from 3. They shoot below 30% from beyond the arc in college basketball this season. So I understand people have PTSD from Providence bowling BYU, Houston bowling BYU, and obviously we'll find out what's going on tomorrow night. To be honest, Chase, Colorado is about to bring this to a one-possession game going into halftime.
You're kidding.
By the way.
Hold on a second, yo. We just did a Houston preview. I hope they're showing this. Show this live stream to the Colorado halftime locker room. Let's get those boys fired up. Come on.
So I just got a text from Jeff Call and the folks at BYU that are at the game right now. They're actually playing this live stream over the Jumbotron at the arena right now. So shout out everyone there. And yeah, so Houston goes up 5 to end the half, 33-38 in that one. But yeah, St. John's, look, obviously you're concerned about them because they're a good team. They're well coached. Rick Pitino's on the other side. You don't want to go against, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the game in a one-off single elimination game. But I don't want BYU fans to think that's this unbeatable team that they have no chance against. It's a very winnable game.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And so that would be the Sweet 16 matchup. That's assuming St. John's gets out of it. I obviously would assume that they're still very good. But just looking at the rest of the 2 seeds here, I kind of like that's the best draw. And I think they got the best draw out of the 3 seeds. I mean, the ones that are available. They obviously wouldn't play Iowa State again. Maybe Iowa State gets bumped to a 4. I don't know. Although Kentucky, and someone did mention in the chat earlier, Nelvin Wilson 7, shout out. I'd love to have Kentucky on that side of the bracket, and just for the storylines, obviously. But the rest of the 3 seeds, man, I like the A&M matchup, dude. I think they match up well. So the Fielding 68 again, shout out. They do a really good job, and they're grinding right now. This is their most busiest month, obviously. I really like what they have cooked up here. I like this bracket.
I do too. And the other thing I wanted to mention about the St. John's point is, look, I don't know how much Big East basketball you've consumed this year, but nobody in the Big East has the shot-making ability BYU has. And you go back and look at their schedule throughout the year, okay, what teams have they played that have somewhat of equal level of shot-making ability as BYU? And you go through it, would you say Baylor is around BYU's range of shot-making ability? Well, they went to double overtime and Baylor beat them in the Bahamas. They lost to Georgia in November. Now, that's a long time ago. I get it. Teams can be very different, but they lose to a team like Creighton. Creighton has some shot makers on that team. So there's not a lot of these elite shot-making teams in the Big East, and that's going to be such a hard thing for St. John's to adjust to. And that's why I'm just not as high on the St. John's team going into March Madness, to be honest.
Yeah, I
know it's not a St. John's podcast, but
yeah.
Actually, if it was a St. John's podcast, people would be tuning out immediately. Anyhow, all right, that'll wrap it up from us. We will be live right after the presumably Houston versus BYU game tomorrow. Quick, we should do this super, super quick. Let's say Colorado beats Houston in some miracle. BYU, Colorado, what happens?
Oh, man. Would you not be kind of scared of Colorado at that point? If that were to happen, though, I'd like BYU by 20. They're much better than that team. And that was the turning point for that we saw was in Boulder, the way that they came back. Although Colorado did show a little bit in that first half, but that was so long ago. I don't want to sound too bold because if they were to pull it off against Houston, they obviously got something cooking here. But I would love that for BYU.
People said the same thing about NC State last year, and they all of a sudden go 5 games in 5 days. Colorado playing. Imagine Colorado winning the Big 12 tournament. That would be the best possible story.
Oh, 100%. It would be incredible. I would almost root for it if they didn't have to go through BYU on their way. But no disrespect to the Buffs. That NC State team still had some dogs, like in DJ Burns. They had shot makers. I just don't think Colorado possesses all those tools,
Yeah, shout out DJ Horn, Muhammad Diarra. I would pick BYU by 20 plus as well. I think it would be a weird first half. I think Colorado keeps it a game in the first half. And I think they just run out of gas. You're playing your 4th game in 4 days. I think in the second half with BYU's depth and everything, I think BYU would just take over and dominate Colorado in that game. But anyhow, so that does it from us. Like I said, we will be live after BYU's Big 12 tournament semifinal game on Friday night here on Twitter. If you're watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple right now, hit that subscribe button. The episode will be live shortly after the Houston versus BYU or Colorado versus BYU game as well. Follow at Chase_Rogers0, at CarterB8, at ChurchballPod on everything, and we'll be here all March Madness season long. We've got, hopefully we're doing 4 pods in 4 days. We got the game today. We got the semifinals on Friday. We got the championship potentially on Saturday. And then we got a Selection Sunday show on Sunday that we're going to need to do. And then we're going to have a preview that we'll have to do right after that as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, this is the best time of the year for a reason, man. And as long as the Cougs keep going, as long as anyone keeps going, I mean, it's going to be good. But, man, it's so much better with BYU in the mix. And this team's legit good. They're in the Big 12 semifinals, dude. Even this is such a Craven Young first year. Program second year in the conference. Special stuff, man.
Unbelievable. Anyhow, and if you're a national college basketball fan, I'll be going live from the @CarterCast Twitter account, doing some live reactions to conference tournament stuff. Tune into that.